Hello everyone, this is Bitcoin Sofia, and today I want to talk about scaling. I want to make a scaling comparison between Lightning Network and Bitcoin Cash. Now, I want to make two types of comparisons. First, what is the current condition, and second, what it can become. So, the current condition of Bitcoin Cash is that it has 32 megabyte blocks, and that every transaction is about 200 and let's say 250 bytes. Most transactions are smaller, but since a few of the transactions are bigger, I push the average higher. Okay, so we have 32 megabyte blocks, and on that side you would see some calculations of how many transactions can fit, how many people can use it every day, and the calculation I used is for 5 usages per person per day. As you see, that's a lot of people, but when we compare that number to the amount of people in the world, it is insignificant. It's so tiny that it can be ignored. Then I can tell you about Lightning Network. Lightning Network does not really have the same type of problem. With Lightning Network, if it's made to work as it's designed, if it's made to work in a way that it would allow you to send many transactions with just one Lightning Network channel opening, by just transferring the money to the script that locks it until the Lightning Network is done, then you're in a different situation actually. Then we cannot count how many transactions would be sent. Instead, we can count how much time would it take for people to open a channel. Because opening a channel, just transferring the money to the place where it's locked, to the script that locks it until the Lightning channel is done, that is a transaction, and we can measure that one. So, how much time would it take for everybody on Earth to open a channel? I know this is not a fair comparison. I did not make the same calculation for Bitcoin Cash, and there is a reason for that. I'll explain later. Let's just calculate that. Over here again, I'm gonna post a calculation of how long it takes for everybody on Earth with 1 megabyte block to post a transaction, a single transaction that opens a Lightning Network channel. And as you see, the period needed, the time needed, is over 40 years. This is scary. This is scary because it means these people, the people of the world, cannot use Lightning Network. Lightning Network is built on top of Bitcoin core, cannot be scalable enough to allow for all of the users. Over 40 years are needed just to open the channels. Yes, whoever opens their channel can start trading in Lightning Network, assuming Lightning Network works well. But how many people can do that? Okay, now let's make the different calculation. We calculated how many people can use Bitcoin Cash right now, 5 transactions a day. Let's calculate how big do the blocks need to get in order for everybody in the world, including babies, including old people, including people in the city or people in the village, the full 7.6 million people, billion people using Bitcoin Cash 5 times a day. The number is quite small. I mean, it is much bigger than the 32 megabytes we have now, but I believe it's quite possible to achieve that number. The number is over 60 gigabytes. I think it is, I'm speaking from my memory because, after all, as you see, I am next to a dam. But from my memory, the number was 61 gigabytes. 61 gigabyte blocks. Is that a lot? Yeah, it's a lot. It's quite a lot. At the moment, the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, the whole blockchain, is less than 200 gigabytes. Saying that we'll add 61 or 62 gigabytes every 10 minutes, that's an enormous scaling. That's quite a lot. However, how much time do you think would be needed to get to that number? How much time? Is it gonna happen in the next year? I doubt it. I doubt it. Next year is too soon. What about in 10 years? Are we gonna be able to do 62, or let's say 64 because it's a power of 2, 64 gigabytes in 10 years? I think we can. I think 64 gigabytes in 10 years is completely achievable. And guess what? 10 years is a lot less than 40. Okay, but that's not fair. That's not fair. I've compared what Bitcoin Cash can become to what Lightning Network is right now, and that's not a fair comparison. Let's talk about what Lightning Network can become if Bitcoin Core scales as described in the Lightning white paper. In the Lightning white paper, there is actually talk about block scaling. You see, the Lightning Network white paper describes that a scaling of the blockchain itself, a scaling of the blocks, would be needed for the Lightning Network to be used. The people who wrote that white paper knew very well that scaling is needed. So what scaling do they propose? If I remember correctly, and I might be wrong here, but if I remember correctly, the number was exactly 133 megabytes. 133 megabytes is 133 times more than right now. But at the same time, how much would it lower this number of 41 years? Let's calculate. I calculated how much time would be needed, and the number is a lot more acceptable. The number of time needed for everybody on Earth to open a Lightning Network channel, if the Bitcoin Core blocks were 133 megabytes big, would be 3 months and a half. 3 months and a half, oh, actually a bit more like 3.69. So let's call it 3 months and 20 days. 3 months and 20 days needed for everybody to open a channel. If they try to close the channel, that's another 3 months and a half. If they try to add more money to a specific connection, that's another 3 months and a half. 3 months and a half for everybody in the world to transact once. Okay, so is that good enough? That is a complicated question. If you ask the guys who believe in Lightning, they would say that once you enter the Lightning Network, you don't really need to go out. You can just stay there. You can just exchange promises of Bitcoin and do that till the end of your life. Why not? I don't believe in that, but at the same time, I don't know exactly how long you can stay there. And if it turns out that you can stay in the Lightning Network for more than 3 months and a half, then it might actually work. However, if it turns out that you can stay there for around 1 month, then Lightning Network would not be scalable enough with the block size described in its own white paper. Okay, so again, another question. How much time is needed until this happens? How much time is needed until the Bitcoin Core guys agree to make the blockchain 133 megabytes per block, to scale that much? And that I cannot tell you. I can tell you about the Bitcoin Cash one because it is actually somewhat predictable. Somewhat predictable that in 10 years we might do that. We might get there. But for Bitcoin Core, I have no idea. You see, we already have the technology that can support 133 megabyte blocks. We already have strong enough computers, good enough internet. And stop. If you live in America and you're gonna say that your shitty connection is not good enough for that, that is your problem. That's not my problem. You see, you only have shitty internet connection, Americans, because you tolerate that. If it was me, I would grab a fucking pitchfork. I would grab some torches and I would go rioting. I would go on a strike. I would boycott that company. I would boycott the government for allowing that company to have a fucking monopoly. Yet you, Americans, tolerate it. That is your problem. Now, can we handle 130 megabyte blocks right now? I believe yes. I believe we can handle it with ease. So, what is then the problem of scaling Bitcoin Core? The problem is the community and the developers. So what's the problem of Bitcoin Core scaling? The problem is in the consensus of the community. The current Bitcoin Core community believes that scaling, making the blocks bigger, is a very risky thing. So the question is not when will the tech be good enough to scale to 133 megabytes. We already have that. The question is when will these people realize that the tech is already good enough? That is the important question. That is what will make the distinction between 10 years or today. If the Lightning Network actually worked, and I don't believe it works, but that's a separate video, that's a separate topic. I don't want to start with this one now. If it works, Bitcoin Core can scale right now for it. Bitcoin Core can scale to 250 megabytes right now, and that would allow for everybody in the world to access the Lightning Network in a month and a half, 2 months, let's call it 2 months. In just 2 months, everybody in the world will be able to open a Lightning Network channel. But they're not gonna do that, are they? They're gonna talk about expectations of usage. They're gonna talk about, oh, we're not gonna have that many channels now. Of course you're not gonna have that many channels now. You don't allow it. That's like somebody who wants to open a store, but before opening a store says, well, I have no clients. There are no clients because there is no store. There are no users because there is no space in the blocks. Sounds reasonable? Okay, so I actually hope that Bitcoin Core will scale sooner. I want to see if I'm correct about the Lightning Network. I want to see if I'm wrong about it. In fact, I prefer to be wrong. So many people would put their money, their effort into that project. I really want it to work. I want to see myself wrong. I want this project to work. And I want the Bitcoin Core network to scale for it. But until then, until the people actually agree that scaling is not that bad, I'm gonna stick with Bitcoin Cash. That's all for me. Bye bye.